Hello and welcome back. We have made it. Congratulations. It is football season. You are watching the first official podcast for the Pinehurst Dynasty League. Everyone is chomping at the bit to get going. I'm excited. Dave, how you doing, man?
I'm jacked, bro. It's my favorite time of year. Getting ready for football. We made it. I think there's a game. There's a game like next week. Isn't the Hall of Fame game next week?
Yep.
Yeah.
So down the road, if anyone wants to come. It's 45 minutes away. I've never been.
Yeah, that's right. I hear it's always riveting to see a bunch of guys that'll never see the field play in a game.
We always get so excited.
Watches. Oh, yeah.
And then about a few series in, we're like, oh, well, this sucks. But at least football's back.
It is football. It's football. All 32 teams are back in camp. We got college football's going, and we're only a couple days away from the start of the league year here in the Pinehurst Dynasty League. So, you ready?
Yeah, let's get going.
Let's do it.
All right.
So okay.
You want to hit all the important dates?
Gotcha. All right, so dates we should know. This is a post on the site, so you can reference it, but just FYI. August 1st, 7 a.m., league year opens, trades are open, live keeper selections begin. We'll have full site functionality, so it's a go. Push those trades through. We're all hot. Just one thing worth noting, taxi moves are locked at this point because we're not moving guys up and down from taxi. Once keepers are set and done, then taxi moves will be opened up so you can start adjusting your roster that way. So just an FYI. August 14th is going to be the keeper declaration date. We have it all to lock at 11:45 p.m. The keepers will lock. You guys input them on the site. So there's a drop down on the top of the site. You select keepers, boom, 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 boom. You can submit it and then change it up until that deadline. So you can go in, submit, then you can go in and change it if something changes. So, but we need to have those done August 14th by 11:45. The draft is going to be August 28th. We'll start around 8 o'clock. There you go. Big Cat's displaying there for us in a Vanna Waite style. So there you go. August 28th, we'll start around 8. We're going to do either a group FaceTime or a Zoom call, TBD. Last year, we made it through all the way through the 5th round and into the 6th round on that first night. 64 picks last year. So, we're doing the draft a little later this year. We're going to need to make sure that we get that done by really September 5th or 6th, because that first waiver run is going to be on Thursday. Is it Thursday the 9th, Derek?
Yes.
Well, whatever. Yeah, so Thursday the 9th. So it shouldn't be a problem. And we can push people forward.
We got three less rounds this year, so it should wrap up a few days earlier. So I think it usually takes less than 2 weeks.
Yeah. And everybody's all jacked up at the beginning. And, I have zero concern of us getting it done in time. Couple rules and regulations notes to hit. First one, injured reserve spots. All teams now have 2. Last year it was 1. You now have 2 injured reserve spots. It's for injured reserve or IR and IRR designations only. And just to clarify, there is no Jordy rule or anything like that in this league. If you want to pick up a guy in IR and stash him on your IR, you go nuts. You have fun. We're laissez-faire here. Do you. And if somebody has a problem with that, feel free to slap the owner that you have a problem with next time you see him. Right? Open hand only. But violence is never the answer.
Will Smith, I saw he posted something today.
He's very sorry, so please hire me to act again. Yeah, my bad. So a couple rule changes that we just had voted through. Everybody should be familiar with this. Taxi send down has been pushed to the kickoff of week 6. Before it was the kickoff of week 4. Now it's the kickoff of week 6. There'll be plenty of reminders amongst the league before that time comes. And then also taxi eligibility has now been pushed out to the 3rd year. So all those decisions that you had to make when a player was entering his 2nd year are now just kicked down. You can kick the can down the road to the 3rd year. If you have any questions about that, reach out to me and Derek, but I think it's relatively clear. Also worth mentioning again, Superflex, which means the ability to start a second quarterback, starts in 2023. So not this season, but next season. Plan accordingly. And our last news and note, which if you've been paying attention to the text string at all, basically if you picked up your phone, you know that Glenn has taken over the Pole Assassin franchise and renamed it Dead Money, which is stupid because he took over he took over what's the record last year? Let's see. Dead Money was 11-3, had a first round bye in the winner's bracket and finished 4th in points. So pretty much as far from Dead Money as you could be. But it's also funny because if they do any worse than 11-4 or don't get a first round bye, well, then Glenn is obviously the problem here. So
obviously,
so it's just a great way. It's just a great way to be able to break his stones. But welcome Glenn to the league. So that's pretty much it as far as news and notes and dates that need to be kept in mind. So, before the trades get going, before everybody starts talking about their keepers and looking at everything like that, the Big Cat and I are going to grace you with our knowledge and our speculation about your shitty fantasy football teams and our shitty fantasy football teams. Not all of them. There's a couple that I was going through them and I was like, fuck, because like these teams are good. But anyway, we're going to go through a quick team by team breakdown. We're going to talk about what we see as the biggest strength for the team, what their biggest weakness is. We're going to take a quick look at the taxi squad and see what we think about the players on their taxi squad. We'll take into account what their draft is, their draft picks are coming up for this year, 2022. And then an overall idea, a grade of what we think that team's performance in 2022 is going to be and kind of a little bit of context there. So Big Cat, if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go. You want to share screen? There we go. All right. So let's start it off with one of the league founders and a recent acquirer of Brian Bussing's probably grossly overpriced services, Mike Smith. Drastically and shockingly overpriced. Mike Smith with the Mapletron franchise. So I'm going to go over this one, Big Cat. So in 2021, Mapletron had a little bit of a bumpy road. They went 5-9, finished 9th overall for a loser's bracket finish, and 9th overall in points. So, looking at this roster, Big Cat, what jumped out to me was the quarterback room here. And, I think a lot of people have high expectations for Hurts, and Russell Wilson has been a good fantasy quarterback for a long time. So Mike has 2 really good quarterbacks. It's going to serve him a lot better next year, as long as everything goes as we think with Hurts. But I think that's the strength of his team. They're both relatively young. He really doesn't need to think about quarterback for another 2 to 3 years, unless Jalen Hurts completely falls flat this year. And then that'll be a big problem for him going forward. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Hurts is good enough to win in Philly. So the weaknesses on this team, or the weakness, if I have to pick one, you got to look at the running back room. James Robinson, it's good that he didn't start the season on PUP, but you got Travis Etienne sitting there right next to him. It's good that Melvin Gordon is back in Denver, I think. But I expect Javonte Williams to take a bigger role this year. And Melvin, he went out and tested the free agent market, didn't get shit, and they signed him for like a 75% discount back in Denver. So that tells you what they think about him. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Davis in Baltimore, it seems like Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins might be having a little problem getting back from their knee injuries from last year. So, you never know. He could be camp meat, or he could get a role. Who knows? But, that running back room is in rough shape. You look at this taxi squad, though, there is stuff to be excited about on this taxi squad for Mike Smith. Ramondre Stevenson, looks to be he's the younger guy in New England, and if he can expand his role this year, then he could be a good asset. I think a lot of people are excited about him. He's a young guy, entering his second year. So, same with Kadarius Toney. He gets a new offensive coordinator, a great offensive mind, the guy that made Josh Allen from a, head scratching, top 10 pick to, the man with the longest penis in the NFL. So, I think that Kadarius Toney has a lot of potential this year, and then JOK in Cleveland could be, he's definitely flex worthy on the defensive side. And if he takes the next step, he could be a really great piece. So, as far as taxi grades, Big Cat for Mapletron, I give their taxi squad an A. This is a good taxi squad. Felton doesn't really have that much value to me, but the other three guys are all guys that can contribute right now in 2022. Yeah. Mapletron picks fourth overall in every round. They also picked up a fourth round pick. They picked 407 also. So they have 6 picks in the first 5 rounds. So that's really good. I think if Mike and Brian have a good draft, they can start to turn this team pretty quickly. So my overall feeling on Mapletron is, they're a borderline playoff team. I think on the losers bracket side of things, I think they're unlikely to make the playoffs, but I think they definitely have potential for a quick turnaround if they have a good draft. And like if that Ramondre Stevenson and Kadarius Toney, those 2 players pan out for them, they could quick turn it and they could get into the playoffs if those 2 guys work out. It's a possibility, but I would pick them for not making the playoffs. I grade them as a C+. This is a C+ franchise for me, Big Cat, and that's Mapletron.
All right. Well, that is a higher grade than I would have given, but I suppose we shouldn't start off the season by just shitting on everyone. So I like that breakdown. And the taxi squad is good. Craig Darius Toney has been lighting up camp. So we all know that either means a lot or absolutely nothing at all. But JOK in Cleveland, everyone is all jacked up for that guy. If he plays all 17 games, he'll be good. All right. So I think I have the distinct pleasure of doing your team next, right, Dave?
Sure do.
Darius Sanders.
Be gentle. Be gentle, Big Cat. Be gentle.
So yeah, this is a team in the league. They got players and stuff, so they got that going for them.
We got uniforms and everything.
So yeah, just a couple notes. So we the triple-headed commissioner committee here. I kind of started the other league that some of you are in, so I wanted to kind of make Mike and Dave kind of take more of the direction of the league. And one of the things that Mike came up with, I believe, is the taxi squad. And I think it's freaking cool as hell. I think it's a great dynamic because we're keeping 14 players this year. We'll keep 15 next year. So it's kind of like a half dynasty league. And I think the taxi squad is an awesome way to kind of like save your future players. And that was the thought by adding an extra year on there. It's not going to take up any more spots, right? Because we all only get 4. But if you got a guy that you want to maybe, give an extra year to, I don't know if there's a good, Davis Mills, what the heck? I think he's starting this year, right?
He should be.
So he's probably not with your other stellar quarterbacks on this roster, probably going to not need to start Davis Mills, but hey, he's got some momentum going there at the end of last year. So maybe he pans out. So that just gives you an extra year to kind of make a decision on those guys. So I like that rule change. In the 2 IR spots, we're kind of, we want to give as much flexibility to the owners now that we're kind of in the 4th year, if you can believe it. And it's really, I think it's an awesome league. I really like how it's shaping up. So, but if you guys have, other ideas or things like that, always bounce them off of us. Even if we don't like it, we'll most definitely put it to a vote for rule changes and stuff. The other thing I will say on the rule changes, seems to be a lot of chatter out there about needing to keep 2 quarterbacks. I don't know if that is necessarily the case. Obviously, every team usually ends up with two quarterbacks, even in a one quarterback league. But it's a long way to 2023, so you don't necessarily have to keep two quarterbacks, because there still will be a few available in the draft. All right, with that, let's take a quick look at Dave's squad here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in the top 100 Dynasty rankings, according to the Football Guys website, including Gabe Davis at 98. So, guy I dropped and regretted it ever since. He's looking mean, 10 pounds heavier. But, to be honest with you, I'm a Bills fan. I don't even know who's getting the ball in Buffalo. Seem to be a lot of guys all of a sudden that can make plays. But anyway, so we'll start at the top. He's got Miles Davis down there on the taxi squad. Matt Ryan, probably his last year. Tua, is it Tua time yet?
Better be.
The new wide receiver certainly seems to think so. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now.
Tyreek Hill.
Yes. So he's fast. We'll see if they can get it going. Historically, Miami has concerned me as a Bills fan every year for the last 10 years, and they always stink. So that's just usually how it pans out with them. I will say Jameis, though, in New Orleans, if he can stay upright, I think he could have a decent year. I really do. Don't know if it'll go too far beyond this year, but Jameis isn't a bad quarterback to have on the squad. Obviously, he's got McCaffrey. Everyone seems to be real down on him. If the guy is on the field, he's going to score ridiculous points. And he's only, how old is he? 25?
26? Yeah, 25. I think he turns 26 at some point this season.
So Carolina seems to be a trendy pick to do well, especially since the Baker Mayfield trade. I'm not so sure about that. But McCaffrey, obviously, tons of value. And Derrick Henry, if you've seen pictures of that guy lately, is just an absolute beast. So obviously hurt last year. Don't know how many years he has left, but strength of this team is obviously running back. Wide receiver, Deontay Johnson. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious the Steelers are not going to pay him, and he's just going to leave next year. I don't know if it's that obvious, but I don't know why you would pay him $25 million a year. And their rookie seems to be doing very well in camp. And the other guys, Paris Campbell, the lifelong project, got some work to do on the wide receivers. Cole Kmet, another guy off of my roster, who I obviously liked, just needs to get it going with the new quarterback out there. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But he's a talented guy. Taxi squad, Freiermuth. Is that how you say his name? Freiermuth?
There's an R. It's an R in there. Freiermuth.
Yeah,
there you go. Muth. It's like jogging or yogging.
Yeah, it's really quite wild. So he is actually ranked 69. Nice. On the Dynasty list. So that is a solid player there. I would assume he's going to come up and play right away. I don't know who Kellen Mond is. I would assume you're cutting that guy.
He's soon to be a free agent, Kellen Mond. He's the backup to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So, overall, I think Dave is in a rebuild here. I would be trying to trade Derrick Henry if I was him. I would obviously hold on to McCaffrey if he does really well. I would assume he would try to trade him for big money during the season. But we'll give you a C- on the squad. You do have some picks though. You have the extra 1.10, right? And what else here?
We got 3 of the first 16 picks.
Yeah. 7 picks in 5 rounds. So that's where these teams are going to have to, make their comeback. It's really that's pretty much that simple. And even as I'm going through my keepers, there's going to be guys thrown back in the draft. So I guess my last note, there's the 14 keepers that we have and 15 next year. That only makes it like, I'd say maybe like a 75% dynasty league. So the guys that can make an impact this year sometimes get put back in the draft. So it's an interesting draft strategy if you're trying to win now versus the future. So, just some things to keep in mind as you're, making those final keeper selections.
There you go. All right. Well, there you go. Moving on. So wait, what did you say that I'm a rebuilding squad? And
I gave you a C minus. Yeah.
That's not bad. That's it. That's more or less where I would put myself. I'm not like a complete bottom feeder. Mm-hmm. And, if like McCaffrey and Henry come back and have strong seasons and I hit on those 2 first round picks, I could probably flirt with the bottom half of the playoffs, but this team I can't win it all with the strength of some of the other teams. So, it's a work in progress, but we'll see.
Yep.
All right. Next up, Big Cat.
Oh boy.
And you digs it. I'm just going down in order of the teams that we had them in there. So, all right. So, by the way, last year, Darius Sanders, 5-9, not great. Finished 10th overall. That's also known as third worst, and 11th in points. So I scored more points than Danny and Joe, but just barely. So anyway, moving on to Diggs. Okay. So here we got Derek. Can you digs it? Went 10-4 last year, had the 3rd overall seed in the winners bracket, finished 5th in points. He lost in the first round of the playoffs. But obviously this is a good team, a contending team last year, and it's going to be a contender again. The strength of this team, as I see it, is that wide receiver room. He's got Diggs and Higgins and DJ Moore, which is like a really nice trio there of wide receivers. He's got 3 high upside guys. Kenny Golladay, he was really good in Detroit. He had a terrible season last year, but that was one of the worst. That was probably the worst coaching staff in the league in New York last year. So Brian Daboll is he's a talented offensive mind, so you would think that he'll be able to find a way to get something out of Kenny Golladay. Is Alan Lazard going to be, the number one option? Nobody knows who the number one option in Green Bay is going to be, but he has high upside. And then, Michael Thomas is, he's back.
He's on the field. I saw him on the field.
I know. So, there's 3 high upside guys. So that's 6 deep at a wide receiver room. That's really good. The weaknesses, and this isn't a weakness like the rebuilding teams have weaknesses. This is just there's some uncertainty in the running back room. Uncertainty with Dobbins and what's he going to be when he comes back. There's, I like Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a strong piece. Devin Singletary, if he plays like he did the last month and a half of last year, he's going to be an unbelievably good piece. But what's going to happen with Damian Harris? What's going to happen with Kareem Hunt? What's his role going to be? I mean, he hasn't been able to stay on the field. So those 2 guys, there's the uncertainty with Dobbins, Harris, and Hunt that I think is less comfortable, but Jacobs and Singletary are, the top 2 right here. So it's very good. This taxi squad, if you scroll down there, big fella, you got Diami Brown and Nico Collins and DPJ from, all wide receivers. And those guys are all kind of like work in progress guys. I think that Nico Collins, especially with, the bad news about John Mechie, but, and then Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think those 2 guys could develop into something, but also with the depth of the team, I don't think those guys are going to be contributors here in 2022. So, for me, this taxi squad is kind of a B-. I don't think any one of these guys is going to turn into a star player. Can they be contributors? Maybe. Are they going to be contributors in 2022 for your team? Probably not. So it's okay, but it's, we'll see. As far as the draft goes for Diggs, he's got no first round pick, but he picks 8th in every other round in the first 4 or first 5 rounds. So that's pretty, that's fine. I mean, I think he can withstand losing a first round pick here this year. So my overall assessment of the Diggs team is, he's in his winning window right now. This is a A- squad as I see it. he's got a good chance. He's almost guaranteed to make the playoffs, barring major injury problems. He's got a reasonable chance to get up top and have it be a winning time, with the age of his players too. He's got a winning window here and doesn't really have to be overly concerned with drafting youth because, you got some guys that are aging out a little bit, but nothing too bad. So, this is a good team. This is going to be a contender. Yet again, Big Cat should be contending up towards the top. I like it. A-.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I don't know why Alan Lazard isn't ranked higher on all these lists because
nobody knows. Nobody knows. You can make an argument for like 5 different guys there. You could be like, oh, well, it's all going to go to Aaron Jones, or oh, it's going to be Bobby Tunyon or Lazard, or whoever that rookie is, the guy they just drafted, or fucking Sammy fucking Watkins. I mean. So anyway, it's wild like that. But all right, we're going Bill Cosby sleepers, our defending champ.
Yeah. So I mean, this team is ridiculous. Oh, I gotta
hold on. Let me give you the little stats here.
Right.
11-3 last year. First overall seed in the playoffs. First overall point in the league, and our 2021 champion. Can you dig? Or Bill Cosby sleepers. Nice season ender. Killed it last year. Just destroyed. Best team in the league by a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the team is still set up very well. Yeah, if you had to try and poke holes in it, really the only thing that you could say is that some of the guys are getting up there. But they still have a long runway, in my opinion. Even some of those guys like
Devontae Adams is getting up there.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp is like 29 or 30 years old, know.
Kupp is 29 as well. So 2 of the highest paid wide receivers in the league. They're guaranteed studs. If I was to guess, though, I would say the highest point total for Devontae Adams is behind him. I don't think he's scoring more than he's done in the past. But I think he's still going to be a wide receiver 1 without question. He's going to be playing in a dome with an awesome quarterback. So it seems like he won't have any problems putting up numbers. But Andrew has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 players in the top 85, actually. And he's got 3 right outside of the top 100. He also has, it's funny on Taxi Squad grades because Jordan Love, I don't think is ever going to start in this league. I don't know who that is, his tight end, but Moore, I think, is a great Dynasty League wide receiver. Is he there right now? No, but like that's a guy who you want on your roster because in 2 years he could be a complete stud.
Yeah, but didn't they just spend first top 5 pick on Garrett Wilson?
Well,
that's the only hole. That's the whole I shoot in Elijah Moore.
He's like a slot guy though, right?
Yeah, he is. We'll see. A lot of mouths to feed in that Jets offense, but it's all right.
So obviously this team is an A. It's set up well next year with Josh Allen, obviously, who he will not trade to me, no matter what I offer. Basically told him I'd give him anything he wanted.
Including cash.
Yeah. A car, whatever. So he's obviously set up great there. That's the top quarterback room in the league. His running back room, I dropped this guy last year, so that's awesome. But you got you got the whole Green Bay backfield, which will be awesome for years to come. I don't think Mitchell is a very skilled running back. He's more of a situation benefit guy. But Javonte, total stud. I'd say he's a top 10 dynasty guy without question.
I'd say so.
Like the wide receiver room, a little bit aging, but really not too bad at all. When you're rolling out Cooper Kupp and freaking Devontae Adams, and Pittman
and Michael Pittman.
So
Yeah.
that's insane. I'd say probably keeping 2 tight ends, I would guess, with Hakkason, who didn't do that great last year, but I expect him
He was
to.
hurt. He was hurt he missed a lot of time, or a decent amount of time with injury. So
Yeah. So nothing
yeah.
much to say here that hasn't already been said before. But if you are a rebuilding franchise, I would suggest hitting Andrew up because he's got guys he's not even thinking about keeping that are probably in the top 150, might help out your squad.
Yeah. Very good team. All right, we're going to the Traz boys next here. So
right.
Team Traz, in 2021, they went 8-6, so 5th overall. They were 7th in points, and they lost in the first round of the winners brackets playoffs. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Great picture.
Really nice. They have 4. So this is an interesting team construction. If you scroll down, they have. I had their strength as like star power, right? They have Brady and Stafford at quarterback. They have Dalvin Cook and Nick Chubb at running back. They have CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver and Kyle Pitts at tight end. That's like some of the best high-end talent at each position on any team in the league, but then we'll dip right to their weakness, which is the depth that they need to be able to contend to get up top, and their depth that we're at running back, beyond that Cook and Chubb duo is not great. It's not great. It's bad. Mm-hmm. Michael Carter is going to be a third down back. McKissick is a passing down back. Rex Burkhead, who God knows what's going to happen in Houston, and Amir Abdullah is just a guy. And then even at wide receiver, you got guys, but is Hunter Renfrow going to do what he did last year with Devontae Adams around? Probably not. Maybe, but I doubt it. What's going to happen with Tim Patrick? Is he going to be the deep threat that Russell wants to dump the ball to? I don't know. Is Mecole Hardman going to step up in Kansas City? I don't know. Tyler Boyd is he's the third Beatle. Mm-hmm. He's the third. He's the third man in that offense. So he's like, again, he's a good depth guy, but he's not going to like step up. So really, when I look at this roster, they like need someone to break out and step up. And when I look at their roster, I just don't know who that's going to be. So that's where I see that their weakness at is that they're not going to have that secondary scoring that's going to be needed to get up with the top level teams. When you look at that taxi squad, though, they got some interesting moves that they could make here. They got Mac Jones, they got Zach Wilson, they got Tom Brady, they got Matthew Stafford. So my guess is that they're going to try to parlay that quarterback depth into players or picks at some point, whether it's this preseason or during the season upcoming. And when you look at Chris Evans, who's, challenging for the backup role for Joe Mixon in Cincy, and Chuba Hubbard, which, I don't know. It's hard to have a lot of faith in him when, Carolina goes out and brings Donta Foreman on board, because he kind of like bumped along as McCaffrey's backup. So, I have their taxi as a B, but it's more of like a tradable B, they could get something back for Mac Jones. They're a contending team, send a Matthew Stafford or Brady, and get something back. That would be fine, so they could get some value out of their taxi squad, but it's probably not anybody that's going to jump up on their roster and play, barring an injury this year. As far as the draft goes, they pick 7th overall. They don't have a 4th round pick, so they pick 4 times in the first 5 rounds. But this is the way I see this team. My analysis is it's a make or break season for them. Their quarterbacks, their secondary wide receivers, their running back depth. Those are the things. They're going to have to find secondary scoring, and they're going to have to make a decision, I think, relatively quickly if it's going to work this year or not. And then, either make their push to the playoffs or start selling stuff off to try to rebuild for next year. So this is a very borderline playoff team. I have them a little higher than Mapletron, but I have them as a B-. This is they're going to finish in, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the league is where I have them.
Yep. Yep. I would agree with all that. But yeah, CeeDee Lamb and Kyle Pitts is always a good place to be starting from in Dynasty land.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have really good pieces, and, they draft and they hit on a couple of their draft picks and stuff like that. And then that's going to add that depth. And then all of a sudden, like, they're another team that could turn it around relatively quickly if they hit with their first 2 or 3 draft picks this year. And then one of those secondary players steps up. So anyway, next up, we are going to look at Wild Bill Mackison, Sin City sitcoms, Mac Attack, whatever he calls them nowadays. So 2021, Billy, didn't have a great season. He went 4-10, finished 11th overall, 8th in points though. Big Cat, take it away.
All right. Well, so like, so I would say that like the Traz boys, they have a top heavy roster. They would be a good candidate to try to, send one of those good pieces out and try to get some more to fill up the squad. Which is why I think this preseason trading period is important for a lot of teams. Probably honestly less so for a team like me. Like, yeah, maybe I can get a big piece for a bunch of my little pieces, but that's hard to do. But being able to round out your roster going into the season is extremely important. So, but Billy Mack has a lot of good pieces. He's kind of, I don't know, he doesn't have as many studs as the Traz boys, but he's definitely got some studs. He's got to fill out the bottom of his roster too. So he's got, the Cincy boys, he's got Chase and Mixon, both top 20 Dynasty players. He's got Burrow, which will be, another top 15 player once we get into the 2 quarterback super flex. It's not 2 quarterback. But if you count Aaron Rodgers, who's at 106, he's got 6 top 100 guys. Brandon Ayuk is a guy who I would look at on the squad as maybe having a bounce back year. Brandon Ayuk being so good is basically why I traded Debo last year after holding on to him his whole career. And as soon as he gets traded, Ayuk stops scoring and all the points go to Debo. So that's how I do it. I still like Waller to bounce back this year as well. I even don't mind Juju this year if that guy can stay on the field. His taxi squad is not good. So
yeah, there's not really anything there that can help out.
Yeah. So I don't know these players off the top of my head. Maybe they're ranked higher, but maybe we talk about it real quick. So I believe how it works. So if Billy Mack didn't want to keep JaMychal Hasty here, he could cut him and he would get a pick at the back end of the draft, basically. So, if you're not going to keep guys on your taxi squad, you can cut them off and you'll get those picks. Smitty actually puts all those in manually. I saw the 13th pick got added as well. So, I will give, Billy Mack is kind of in the same position as, kind of the borderline playoff teams. I would have him right there, kind of at Dave's level. I'll give him a C- as well. I believe he finished, what did you say, 8th last year in points?
He was, let's have a look here.
Yeah, 8th.
11th overall, but 8th in points. Yeah. Here's something that we got to keep in mind for Billy, though. Billy picks 8 times in the first 5 rounds, and he has 3 of the first 15 picks.
Yep.
So Billy is a team that if he nails his draft here, he could very quickly jump into a contender. Absolutely. 3 out of the top 15 players is significant. So, it's a big year for this franchise, big draft for Billy. If he nails this draft, he's going to flip into a contender real quick. Could Absolutely. Be even this season.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think that's it. That's it for Bill. He's got some good players. Hopefully, since he keeps it going, and he'll be just fine. Yeah. And Jamar Chase is obviously, I'd put that guy a top 3 wide receiver in the league, not fantasy wise, just straight up. The guy's it's like he was built in a factory. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. He's, him and Justin Jefferson just rolled right off the line at the LSU wide receiver factory. So, Billy, I have him in the same area. So, all right, moving on. Beaver Tamers, Dominic. So Beaver Tamers, 2021, Dom went 9-5. He ended up finishing 5th overall. He was 2nd in points, and he lost in the 2nd round of the playoffs. So good, solid season for him. Another very strong team. Quarterback room's very good. As I see the strength, it's that trio of starting running backs that he rolls out every week. Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, James Conner. I mean, he's got basically like the 2 top dynasty running backs. Taylor and Najee Harris, I think, combined to be 1 year older than I am in real life. So that's crazy. So really good running backs. His running back depth is not good beyond that, but to be able to roll out 3 good starting running backs is something special in this league. Scroll down a little bit, Kat. His weakness, it's not a weakness. Again, this is a very good team. So I would just want to keep an eye on his wide receiver depth. He has Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So he's got a lot of eggs in that Chargers basket, which, is great, as long as everything's going good. And there's no reason to think that the Chargers are not going to be a significantly, productive offensive team this year. So again, not something I'm overly concerned with, but Keenan Allen, he's got the big play guy in Mike Williams, and he's got the consistency guy in Keenan Allen. Love it. But beyond that, the depth gets a little sketchy. Tyler Lockett, excellent player, obviously worth a 1st-round pick. Cortland Sutton, shut up. Cortland Sutton is he going to be Russell Wilson's guy in Denver? Maybe not, but beyond that, what do you got? Rashad Higgins, Van Jefferson, Keelan Cole, a bunch of fucking nobodies, Devontae Parker, maybe he'll have a role, but I mean, hey, look, you want to roll out New England Patriots receivers? Fine. Not for me. On his taxi squad, Trey Lance, Rashad Bateman, Bateman's supposed to slide into the starting role that Hollywood Brown vacated. Trey Lance has the reins of the San Francisco offense. So, 2 exceptionally good starters there. Word on the street is that Trey Lance may be called up from the taxi squad this year. Maybe not, depending on how Dominic handles his quarterback situation. His other 2 taxi guys, Larry Roundtree and Zaven Collins, are fucking nobodies. He might hold on to him just to see if Zaven Collins pans out as a pass rusher, but I think Larry Roundtree's out in LA since they drafted who did LA draft? Spiller, right?
Yeah.
So rookie. So Larry Roundtree's a cut, but Lance and Bateman are 2 guys that could easily start in 2022. So that's a B+ for me on his taxi squad. In his draft, his big concern is that he doesn't have his 1st-round pick. But beyond that, he picks 210, 311, and 4-2. So a lot of trades for Dominic, which you love to see. But he's only got 3 picks in the first 5 rounds, and they're, he doesn't pick until 210. What is that? 23, 4, something like that. I forgot how it works with the extra pick, but anyway, the draft is a little weak for Dominic, so he's going to have to be very cautious about how he handles that. But overall, my overall assessment, again, this is a win now team. This is an A squad. This is one of the top 2 teams in the league. And it's odd that they're in the division. They're in my division, so I got to play them both. But, Andrew and Dominic, I think, have the top 2 rosters in the league. This is an A squad. Look for them in the playoffs.
Yep, I agree. And I guess I have to backtrack a little bit on Tyler Lockett. I guess he didn't do that bad for him. But
yeah, what you don't like 73 catches for 1,175 yards and 8 touchdowns?
Yeah, maybe he'll do.
That's not good enough for you. That's not fucking good enough for you. Okay.
Oh, it's not in here. You took him around the bye.
See.
So yeah, you had this big game, then disappeared for the playoffs.
Missed it. Yeah,
Which
missed
is
the game.
exactly what I told you when you tried to trade him to me.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, so I can't argue with that. I mean, I never did argue with the trade. I just told you I wouldn't give a 1st-rounder for him, but they found someone that would. All right. So let's see who we got next.
Hulk hands. So Wallace, 2021, Wallace went 7-7. He finished 6th overall, so just snuck into the playoffs. because of the points. He was third in points. And he actually had a good playoff run. He ended up losing in the Super Bowl. So he won 2 playoff games and fell to Andrew in the Super Bowl. So, not a great record at 7-7, but a very successful season for Wallace. So Go for it.
So I think Wallace is a good example of how quickly a team can turn because, with that year he won, basically he was unbeatable. And now I'm not saying his squad isn't great. Well, I guess I am. It's no longer great. I'd say it's really good. So I'm going to give him a B plus. Things I like are his taxi squad, Fields and Parsons is probably, I haven't looked at them all side by side, but that's probably the best taxi squad that I've seen so far, and at least what we've talked about. Things I don't like. So I think Wallace kept quite a few defensive players last year. And I guess I'll work in my public service about IDP players. So, and I mean, we've all been doing this for a while now. I'm certainly no expert, but the kind of ebbs and flows of the defensive players from year to year, it's very hard to predict. So some CJ Mosley is a great example. Everyone's just been waiting for that guy to get on the field. And when he finally did, he had 106 tackles and was a top defender. He probably wasn't even drafted last year in our Dynasty draft. And other guys who were supposed to be, top 8 guys fell off. So keeping defensive players, you obviously want to keep your studs, but, just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at guys from year to year. Also, the defensive rankings are all over the place. I know the website I use kind of adjusts for the scoring. So that's important to take a look at as well. Some of our league is basically standard, but I would say it's maybe a little more sack dependent than standard. So something to keep in mind. Also, another public service announcement. And I'm not trying to bag on Wallace's team here. Kirk Cousins may be keepable. Daniel Jones, I would say he is the trendy pick as someone who could do well this year. Tannehill, probably isn't going to do better than what he did last year. These are an example of borderline quarterbacks that I probably wouldn't be keeping if I had better options on my squad. And like I said, it's a long ways to 2023. So, just something to keep in mind there. I'm sure we'll have guys trying to stash quarterbacks. Like we know that's coming already. And that's fine.
That's fine.
What's that?
You do you, boo. You do you.
Exactly. So we've had other teams, and I'm not picking on Wallace. These are general things. We've had other teams try to stash positions, and it just really hasn't worked out for them. So I always try to, zig while everyone else is zagging. So I'm not going to be keeping 2 quarterbacks, but just something for you guys to think about out there. Tyreek Hill in Miami is something that I'm concerned about very much. DK with no quarterback, something I'm concerned about very much. His other guys, so hearing some news on Allen Robinson, but you never know.
He seems to be the darling of the fantasy wide receiver world, but yeah, well, he was last year too. So
exactly. Yep. Obviously he's got a deep linebacker room. Safety is a position, unless you got a complete stud that I would not look to keep. But yeah, like I said, his team was unbeatable 2 years ago. And now I'd say, he's definitely not rebuilding. He's obviously positioned to win now. There's also the matter of the Kamara suspension. I don't know if he's getting suspended.
It's going to be, who knows, right?
So, and Kamara was basically one of the big reasons he won 2 years ago. So anyway, still a very solid squad, still a lot of players in the top 100. I would say he needs a youth movement, just my opinion. So that's an interesting team to keep an eye on. Is he going to go all in now, or will he try to get younger and acquire more picks? So should be interesting. I'm going to give him a B plus.
Yeah, that's kind of where I have him as a B plus team. And, speaking of his need to get youth, he's got 3 picks in the first 5 rounds. He picks 111, 211, and 511. He doesn't have a third or a fourth. So, those first 2 picks for him are going to be critical, critical in the future of his team. Yeah. So, I think Joe is I agree. I think he's a dangerous team, but he's kind of like the old silverback that's on his way down, unfortunately. Well, you know
I mean,
what? You
that's
know what you
just
can
what
say
the
for
people
Joe
get
though.
to me.
At least he had his fucking day in the sun, because that
Yeah,
never happened in this
absolutely.
league. So, okay. So the next segment we're gonna call the "Say Something Nice About Danny and Joe's Team." Danny and Joe's team, DJ Bogashuga, 2021, they went 2-12. They were finished 12th, last place in points. But oddly enough, they won the fucking losers bracket, which is unbelievable, and I love it. Everything about that just is fucking amazing. So, um, yeah. So their strength, look at that wide receiver room. It's not horrific. Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, MVS. You know, Robbie Anderson should have a role in Carolina still. DJ Chark, um, in Detroit, should have a role. So I don't hate their wide receiver room. Um, and the weakness, obviously, they have glaring weaknesses at the quarterback and running back position. Between their quarterbacks and their running backs, there is one starter, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, the Deshaun Watson thing obviously is important, but Bridgewater and Heineke are both backups now. Every other running back on the roster is a backup. Trey Sermon is a cut candidate in San Francisco, I hear. So, big time problems for these boys in the running back and quarterback world. I guess if you look at it on a longer window, their quarterback situation is not dire, assuming Deshaun Watson comes back at some point, but the running back situation is a red alert for them. Bridging on that down to their taxi squad, they got nothing there. There's no usable pieces for 2022. I mean, maybe Jalen Phillips, they can drag him up maybe he'll have a bigger role at a linebacker, but those offensive players, Jalen Darden, I think is nobody. He has nothing going on, especially with the signing of Julio Jones in Tampa Bay. The other guys are linebackers. So, their taxi squad is a D- for me. They have no usable pieces. Their draft is a huge benefit for them. They pick 7 times in the first 5 rounds. They have 3 out of the first 14 picks. They pick first overall, 13th overall, and 14th overall. So, again, like critical year for these guys to build depth on their team and make sure that they're using their draft picks wisely. But bottom line, the overall assessment here, I love you guys, but this is a rebuild. They need to nail the draft. They're still probably 2 or 3 years away from being a contender in the league. And if I had to rate them, I would say that they are a D-. This is a life support team right here. It's not like dead or anything like that. They'll bounce back over time, but they're going to have another bumpy season.
Yep. So another team that maybe can pick off some scraps of other people's cuts. So I would be looking to do that if I were them. I have no advice for you on Deshaun Watson. I was all hot and bothered to trade for him, and I'm not going to do that anymore.
All right. So moving on here, we got Lord of the Slum coming up, Derek. So Lord of the Slum, Mike Goldberg, 2021, he went 7-7, just missed the playoffs. He finished 7th overall. He was 6th in overall points. What do you see for his strengths? What do you like about this squad?
So Mikey kind of chose to rebuild last year, and it's showing up this year. So he fleeced me for Debo, who is number 12 on my dynasty list. Jalen Waddle, I'm a huge fan of that guy. I think he's going to do better than Tyreek. Mahomes, obviously a stud. NTN, I have him way lower than consensus, but still a chance to be really good. And I like Devonta Smith. So that's what, 5 players in the top 50 right there, dynasty wise, that I like a lot. However, it drops off pretty drastically from there. So, I'm having a hard time getting all the keepers that he would make, but he's got some solid core pieces that he can have for a long time. I don't know. Let's see, on the defensive side, Bosa is good. And that's probably the only defensive keeper that jumps out at me. And he's got NTN on the taxi squad, so he basically got an extra pick.
Yeah,
so
that's huge. And he's got Amon-Ra St. Brown down there on taxi too. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's 2 good startable. I mean, those guys will play in 2022 for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Mikey a C+ with room to improve, but I would say he'd be another kind of borderline playoff team.
Yeah, that's where I got him too, and he's got 6 picks in the first 5 rounds, and he has 2 first-round picks. He picks 106 and 109. So, again, that first round is going to be real important for Lord of the Slim. So, all right, 2 more teams to go here. We're going to talk about our friend Craig Darius Toney, 5-9 last year, 8th overall, 10th in points. Strengths, I mean, those running backs, they're aging, but I mean, he's got 4 quality running backs: Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, and Antonio Gibson. He's got 4 starting running backs on this team. Like, all is not lost here. I know Craig is like totally like trending to write off this season, but like, it's 4 good running backs right there. Weaknesses, wide receivers, AJ Brown and who, right? He's got AJ Brown, but a bunch of other guys that, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, what you're going to get out of Calvin Ridley and Chester Rogers. You're going to get 0.
Right.
But yeah, and Deshaun Jackson too, I guess. Wow, that's a lot of free agents on this roster. So I love you, Craig. I love you, baby. But that wide receiver room is fucked up. Taxi squad, Josh Palmer could be the 3rd wide receiver in LA for the Chargers. That's a spot that could carry some value. Is Amari Rodgers going to jump into a starting role in Green Bay now that Devontae Adams is gone? Maybe not, I guess. Who knows? So, that's a C-level taxi squad. I mean, KJ Hill and Patterson have no value. But Palmer and Rodgers, I think, have value to hold on to. In the draft, he didn't make any moves last year, so he picks 5th in all the rounds. So he has 5 picks in the first 5 rounds. But this is a rebuild. And if he wants to flip those running backs for players or picks, what's he going to be able to get? And is it going to be worth it to do that? Unfortunately, the weaknesses of the other parts of his roster, don't really make sense to keep those guys, because they're just going to help him get the 5th pick again next year, probably. But, you can't go shipping off, starting running backs for, shitty draft picks and stuff. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Craig does. I think he's got an interesting roster, but yeah, not a great team. Not a great team. This is a D. Unfortunately, he's going to have another rough year, I think, especially if he ends up shipping off these running backs. So,
yeah.
And that brings us to. Oh, do you have something else?
I don't know. What do you think AJ Brown's going to do in Philly? He got traded, right?
I think he'll be fine. I mean, it was a run-heavy offense in Tennessee, and there are high hopes for, they traded him, they paid him a shitload of money. They're not just going to do nothing with him. That's the way that I see it, So he's going to get the ball. He's going to get looks. It should be a dynamic offense. I'm confident that AJ Brown will still be good. I'm not like super worried about it. So that's my stance on it. You don't pay a dude $25 million for him to be a decoy for Devonta Smith. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
all right. Last but not least, Glenn, the new owner.
Dead money. So Bussing last year went 11-3 in 2021. They went 11-3, finished wild. 2nd overall, got a 1st-round bye. They came in 4th in points. They had a bye in round 1 of the playoffs, lost in round 2 of the playoffs. So, and again, a very successful season for this franchise that Glenn is taking over now and trying to push it over the finish line. Big Cat, let me hear it.
So this is a team that's I thought would have had a better roster based on how they finished last year. Not that it's bad or anything. I just don't know how well it's going to translate over. I like Marquise Brown a lot in Arizona. I think he's gonna do well there. I like Scary Terry. Mike Evans will have another great year because he's a great receiver. Eckler is always an injury concern, but if he plays, he's going to be awesome. And he's got Cooks. I thought Cooks was a shitty trade last year, and he did great, honestly.
He's got Amari Cooper too. Don't forget Amari Cooper. I mean, he's the number one wide receiver for Deshaun Watson whenever he comes back. I mean, not to interject here, but like really the way I see Glenn's team, there are other teams that have star power but no depth. This is a deep team right here. His deep teams. He doesn't have that guy up top. He doesn't have Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or something, but the depth on this team is like really good. And that's why Brian did so well last year. It's deep. I mean, look at all those starting wide receivers. He's got Odell Beckham too. I mean,
I would say
he's got a lot of dudes.
Keep Odell, but yeah, definitely a lot of names. He's got one. Yeah. And so his quarterbacks obviously are a concern. Maybe Glenn gets out there and tries to trade some of that depth for a better quarterback.
He's got Trevor Lawrence on the taxi squad, the first overall pick in 2021.
I'm just not a Trevor Lawrence believer. I just don't think he's going to make it. I don't know. I
don't think you can count what happened last year. I think Urban Meyer fucked that place up so bad that you got to give him this year and see what happens. Yeah. Because do you remember how good he was in college? I mean,
oh yeah,
so good.
So I've had this opinion on him for a while, and then you see his tape, and he's just like perfect,
because he looks like a chick, dude.
Yeah,
he looks like a chick.
Got a nice no. So, but yeah, I mean, his throwing motion is perfect. He's a perfect quarterback. Will it translate to success? He just doesn't seem to have that burning desire to want to be a great quarterback. That's just my opinion. We will see if we can play this back a year later and I look like a complete fool. We probably actually won't remember, but so yeah. So is Trevor Lawrence a starting quarterback this year?
Maybe.
I don't think he's in the top 12 of my rankings, but he's right there, probably between 8 and 14, I'd say. Trevor Lawrence is 13th on my list. So yeah. Not horrible. But lots of pieces. He's obviously a win this year team. If I were Glenn, I would be making moves for this year, and the rest be damned, because he gets a couple big pieces. He can make a run.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that you got to look at here too is his draft status. He's got no first round, no second round, no fourth round. So he picks twice in the first 5 rounds, pick 309 and pick 509. Now, to be fair, two of those draft picks became Brandon Cooks and Mike Evans. So significantly good keeper players. So it's not like they were pissed away, but he's definitely a win now team. Try to get it over the line and see what happens. And if the Trevor Lawrence thing works out for him, then he's going to be up at the top of the contenders. But I have him as a playoff team, borderline playoff team, but on the in the playoff side of things. That's where I see him.
Actually, he would be a pretty good trade partner with Craig. Now that Marcone.
Yeah, except for you can't give him any draft equity.
Yeah, it would have to be for the following year. So
2023. So
yeah.
All right, Big Cat. That's it. One last thing that we're going to add when I post this up is we're going to do our pre-keeper power ranks. So we're going to rank the franchises 1 to 12, and I'll post that up along with this video. But if you made it this far, congratulations and thank you for your time. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed wasting it with us.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. We'll probably do probably one right before the draft, I would say, would be the next one after the keepers are set and stuff.
Yeah, sometime in between keeper declaration and the draft, we'll probably do something else, and then it's on, baby. Football, it's coming.
All right, good luck, boys, getting those squads in order, get those trades out.
That's right.
I'll learn.